Hey guys, welcome to the show. It's the Holy Hour, the All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin, and we have a bonus episode for you guys. What do you know? Right at the calm before the storm here of the Latin American dates that are probably starting tonight, maybe. So, this is just a fun little conversation that popped up. It was too good to pass up on, so I wanted to get it out to you guys right now, right before all the shows start. But we were very lucky to cross paths with Antonio's friend, Doug Robinson from the band The Sleeping, who's just reunited fairly recently and put out their 5th album. We talk all kinds of cool music stuff. There is a Cure crossover. Turns out he recorded with none other than Ross Robinson. Yes, so you'll love hearing first-hand stories of working with Ross, hearing about how The Sleeping reunited and what making this record was like. And also we get to talk about Doug's amazing vinyl collection a bit. So a little bit of everything in here. You're going to love it, and just a cool conversation, like I said. So, on top of that, there were a few more updates that happened after that last Cure pre-tour hype episode that we put out. So, I wanted to address those at the top here, just so you can all go into the tour dates with all the knowledge officially documented. Most of you know by now, but unfortunately, Roger will not be playing these shows with The Cure. Due to illness, it said he would not travel with them. They got Mike Lord, former Tech, that is filling in for him. So it was hard to say. I mean, I kind of, like a lot of people, assumed it was probably COVID or just the flu or some kind of sickness thing on the top. He tweeted a little afterwards that it was going to take a little bit more treatment and time, but he's in good hands with good doctors and friends and family, so we're wishing Roger all the best luck from here with the little details we know, but we hope that he bounces back very quickly, and whatever the Cure may have around the corner after the Latin American dates, we see Roger's smiling face up there again soon. So get well, Roger. We're all pulling for you. We know you got this. And on the sickness front, too, Twilight Sad is officially out on these dates, too, so like I said online, I can't help but feel like I jinxed everybody. I was like, everything's great, everyone's healthy, they didn't have nothing to worry about, should be the exact same lineup, blah, blah, blah. So you can blame me, I jinxed it all. But we're also wishing the very best to Twilight Sad, too. Almost seems weird at this point if a Cure show is happening and Twilight Sad isn't opening in some form or another. So there were a couple of those later ones where it was just like Slow Dive and Twilight Sad and The Cure. So I don't know if they're going to get another band to fill in there, or if they're just going to go with the one or so other bands on the bill. But we shall see. So unfortunately, a couple losses there with the illnesses, but we hope everybody is recovering swiftly. On top of that, just today we got the release of the tour art. As we had seen on the North American tour, we got a really cool poster, a card, and hoodies and t-shirts available for the Mexico City show, and it's a cool one. It's got the pyramid with Robert's eye up there, and very cool. I like this one a lot. Just cool colors too, so it looks awesome and keeps the cool art theme rolling. So hopefully all these other festival ones will have a cool specific poster and merch to go along with it. So you can, so everyone in South America and beyond can also partake in the fun merch buying experience that the shows of A Lost World have become. So that's all I got that I could think of at the moment. We got Rogers out. We got Mike Lord in. We'll have to just see. These will be unique shows to see if he's able to hold down the fort. We have all the faith in the world. If he was his Tech for as long as people are saying, then he should have it down fine and be able to pull it off. But it'll be interesting to see some video clips, and bound to be a blast. And once again, we are hoping to talk to Andy. So with this episode coming out now, do expect it is overlapping with the Thanksgiving week there that I'm going to be traveling. So we're going to try to grab Andy right after we all get back and settled. So just hold tight. It might be a little longer than I wanted, but it should only be about a week later. and it'll be a great conversation when we get all the details from him, hopefully. And or we'll just make shit up. But hopefully he'll help us out still, and we look forward to talking to him. But I don't want to waste too much time here. Let's dive into this awesome conversation that myself and Antonio and the one and only Doug Robinson from The Sleeping. Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin. We have a very special episode for you guys this evening. I am joined by good old Antonio over here, and we have a very special guest. I'm going to kick it off to Antonio to introduce, because they go way back. So,
yeah.
What do you say, Antonio?
Excellent. Yeah, super excited. Just to be kind of rounding out as we're getting closer to the end of the year. Every episode's been, fun and exciting as we kind of close out, 2023, which was, I think a pretty good year in general for Cure Talk. It's given us a lot of stuff. But with that being said, new music and things, I've recently been able to, reconnect with a very old friend who's more like family to me. Doug Robinson from the band The Sleeping is with us today, and it was just so happened after us kind of reconnecting at one of their reunion shows. He had posted a picture on his Instagram about snagging a pornography first press on vinyl. Being a vinyl nerd myself and a Cure fanatic, I was like, dude, you got to come on the podcast.
Nice.
So now we've just been trying to bounce around, him working on doing some touring and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and slinging records and getting involved with all kinds of great stuff. My boy, Doug, welcome to the Holy Hour podcast.
Seriously, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Kind of like you said, Antonio, we go way back. And for those who don't know, I've lived with you. You've taken care of me in a lot of my younger years. And, I really appreciate that. And just to reconnect again is super cool. And it's life moves so fast, but at the same time, I think sometimes it helps you slow it down as you get older. And
absolutely,
you're a very important person to me. So I'm really happy we talk again and just hang out.
Hell yeah, dude.
It just didn't continue to just separate us, but it's nice to really hang out with you again. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's just another testament to how strong the love for music is. We met, through being in bands that played together and whatnot. And like Doug said, there was a time when he had, moved to Long Island. He'd live on my couch with me and my buddy Scott, and we'd, we'd work on songs, and he'd be writing away his lyrics in his notebook, and just so our love for music is, stretched many years riding in vans together. I even flew out to Vegas one year when they were on tour with Bayside, and it was Doug's 21st birthday, so we wanted to do it proper.
That's so great.
Nice.
So we go way back, and I'm just down to let everyone know about what you've been doing, because I gotta say, and it's not because you're my friend and you know this, The Sleeping is a band that I fully adored, and you guys have done something pretty magical recently, coming back with the original lineup of the band and completely funding your own new record, and then not only doing that, putting the fucking record out in amazing colored vinyls, beautiful artwork, a sick fucking video, and the album's great. It's almost like you guys took no time off from hanging out and writing, and and that's hard to do. And as Cure fans, we're hoping that's what's going on with Robert and the boys finishing this album. But if you'd like to just kind of share some of that story for the listeners, because we got a bunch of music nerds with headphones on right now. They'll probably love to hear some of that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you. It's so crazy every time I talk about the band again, because there was a big point of my life where I was pretty comfortable not being in a band. It's who I am. It's who I'll always be. I'll always be a musician. I'll always be a a maker of art, an appreciator of art. But, you know, I was just like, cool, like I've made my mark to what I felt was success to me. And I have a great life, which I still do, obviously. But, you know, there was just a time where I was like, okay, cool. You know, this is like a nice chapter of being in a band and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the sleeping, we always stayed friends. You know, when we called a hiatus or whatever many years ago, Sal is one of my best friends on the entire planet. I've never not kept in contact with him. And like, you know, beyond that, you know, we're just friends. We're best friends. It's just the way it's always been.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same goes for Cameron and Joe. You know, I see Sal more, but or at least at this point, I saw Sal more. Cameron lived in another state and then another country for a while. And living in, you know, in another state, you know, we would always just keep in contact. It was just kind of more, you know, everyone had their lives going on. I mean, you know, the sleeping, we never stopped. We never stopped.
Yeah.
And I think that caused serious burnout. Cameron leaving the band, you know, I think there was just a point where we all felt post Cameron and just after 2 more records after Cameron, we're like burning ourselves to the ground. And now I see the difference of touring now and as adults and touring back in the day, because it's a beautiful, healthy thing. But you don't realize that when you're like, nothing else matters until the wheels fall off. Like we kept in our contact, you know, we always kept in touch, but Cameron and I were the ones who really started, you know, there was a couple offers on the table and things here and there, and we said no for years. We're just like, no, you know, we're not a band that wants to be like a cash grab, you know, by any means. We're, you know, that's
like just going into a festival because the money's there, but,
exactly.
but the passion's not in it, you know.
We do it our way by any means, as much as we could, you know, being on Victory and all that stuff. We were always a band that wanted to do it our own way, and this time we had the opportunity to, but you know, the timing was right for many years, and all of us felt that way. But Cameron and I had started talking again and talking a lot more than we had in a long time, besides our hellos and texts and see how we're doing. And, you know, we just started talking for like a year, maybe more. Cameron and I were like really trying to get it going.
Was this, sorry to interrupt, but was this after like the 2016 kind of pause? Like I was trying to write out the timeline. You guys had kind of...
We did that reunion in 2016 and it felt good, but it just didn't feel all the way there. You know, we had I mean, we were just stoked to play again and to play a room. Yeah. We were just like, oh, this is fucking rad.
Yeah, that was at the Paramount, right, in Long Island. And it's funny because I didn't get a chance to see you before you guys started playing. And then I don't even remember what song it was, but finally I'm in the back of the club and I'm like, I ran up, I jumped on top of everybody, climbed everyone to the front to the point where we finally connected eyes. And when you were just like, yes. And I was like, it was like our hello.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, like, you know, it just still didn't feel right. Like we were just happy that we had the opportunity to do it and we were hanging out again as a band, because we didn't hang out as a band for a very long time. So like it kind of got us together, and like, you know, playing a show in front of that many people and obviously going home, selling merch, like of course it's a great thing. I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, the money doesn't, you know, it's great.
Yeah.
But like, we really just wanted to see if we can do it again and actually like be together as the 4 original members. You know, Paul and Chris, members after Cameron, they were there too, and it was really great. But just the core of me, Cameron, and Sal and Joe, just like hang out again and just.
So just to give people an idea, so you guys started with the core 4 in what year was that?
It was 2016. Oh, like when
the original. You started as a band.
3, like 2000, end of 2000.
Right. Okay. And then the last show with the original lineup with Cameron was when?
I mean, our last record came out in like 2012, and that was 2 records after Cameron. So, I mean, it was a while. Right after, like, pretty much after like a couple of touring cycles of like questions and answers. And, you know, there was moments where we were like, oh, wow, this band is doing something. We could see the change every night. And then Cameron left and all the momentum shifted. But you know, it's a sensitive subject, not now, but it was a sensitive subject at those times. But you get older and you talk more and it's like, yo, whatever, we're all humans. Everyone's going through these things. So
Right. Yeah, of course.
the 2016 show was just a way to hang out again and realize like, oh my God, we still have insane chemistry. I remember, my wife, that was like her first time hanging out with the entire band. And I remember we left a dinner we all had together, and my wife was literally like, she looked at me after we were like walking back to the venue, and she was like, the chemistry you guys have is like mind blowing. She's like, you guys that like be a band. And
I've been around a million fucking bands, right? Like we have, but there was something always so special about being in a room with the four of you guys, or in a van, or backstage. There was always something that was so strong. And I really think it's because, and Gavin being a musician too, like you get it. Like the first instrument I ever played was guitar. Then it's like my first serious band, though, I was playing bass. And then, I'm singing, and then I'm doing Taking Back Sunday, and then I'm doing this. And then, but the thing is like you got together a group of guys that Sal is a bass player's bass player. Like that man knows that instrument. Yeah. Cameron is one of the most creative guitar geniuses I've ever met in my fucking life. And I don't say that because he's my friend. I mean it. And Joe Zizzo is like a drummer that extraordinaire. I mean, what he did after the Sleeping, becoming the it drummer in LA for fucking everybody. Like the magic, like you got together three phenomenal musicians, and then you brought like a head to this like crazy beast with just so much energy and passion. It was different than what a lot of our friends were doing there. There's a lot of great bands, but when someone's coming out like with one guitar and Cameron's still making the sounds. And it's the same thing like the first time, like when Elvis, I took him to see The Cure this year, he goes, Dad, I just realized it's just one microphone. There's no backing vocals.
Yeah.
Like, but it's full. You guys had that same thing where like everyone's like stood their position and did it at a crazy level and at a passionate level. And it was something to be reckoned with. And you were one of those bands where I would just tell people, no, come see this band. And then they'd see you live and they'd be like, yo, I'm hooked.
Totally. I appreciate that. But what's cool about the Sleeping is, we were very strong in that. We are very sorry. I'm still so getting used to us being a band,
Yeah. Were we? It's like,
what's cool about the Sleeping is, that is true, right? Like I say this as a lover of music. Those guys are incredible musicians. I don't consider myself some incredible singer, but I have this passion that I will always have. But what's also really great about the Sleeping is the chemistry we also have off the stage is insane. I mean, like, for better or for worse, for our band, we're a super democratic band. We're all like super thick-headed, right? But like it makes this push and pull of the music. And that was something for example, that's the thing my wife saw when we were all out to dinner. She like we were cracking at each other and like, we're maniacs. And my wife was just like, she was just like, yo, like you have to do this again. So that was 2016. We didn't, when she said that, I was like, yeah, I kind of shrugged it off because it's like, who knows if we'll ever do this again. We thought that was going to be like our last show. But then we got like another offer to do Irving Plaza, like after the pandemic, but it was during that one winter where it started resurging again. And we were supposed to play Irving Plaza. And the day we were like going to practice, it like apparently a lot of people at Irving had it. Like it was just very bad. So, we talked to like Christian McKnight, who, was the manager of the Sleeping. He was like a lifeline to the Sleeping, and he helps, obviously he books the shows. So we were talking to Christian about Irving, and, we were just like, all of us, including him, are like, it just doesn't make sense to do it. So we were at Amityville Music Hall And that's where we were rehearsing, because Dan and all the people at Amityville were cool enough to let us use the space to rehearse, because there was nothing going on during that time.
Yeah, so it's like Long Island's like punk hardcore venue. So our buddy owns it, so they got to just kind of practice there because you couldn't, there was nothing going on at that point,
Right.
Yeah.
So when we got the news, we were like, well, we're here. Let's just jam. Let's just see what happens. And we jammed for like maybe 3 hours, I think. And in the first hour, we wrote the first song on the new record, and which is one of my favorite tracks on the new record, because I listened to it and I just think like, holy shit, we wrote that 1 hour being together again after since 2016. And even that was just for one show. So like in the big batch of time, we wrote a song that is one of my favorite songs of the band. And that's when I think everyone's gears kind of started to turn. And a year later, we went into the studio, and I remember the last day was the last song I worked on was our song on the record, Halcyon, which is like kind of the main single. And I remember hugging Cameron at the end, because it was just me and Cameron and the producers left. And I remember hugging Cameron on my way home, like on my way out. And I was like, we like hugged for like 10 minutes. I was like, dude, we did it. Like, this is insane. Long time coming, but natural, organic, which is the only way we know how to be. And, I'm proud of it. The record is honestly, I think it's the best record we've ever done, and I mean that sincerely, because, making these records all the time when you're younger, you're just in that headspace of like, I'm here right now.
Yeah.
I want here right now. But this record, I was like, I kind of had a mix of being fully present, but also like, what do I want to do that I've never done on the other records that I wanted to do? Okay, I want my delivery to be stronger. I want my attitude to come across more. I want more of this, like, I want to be more of a lyricist. I want to kind of, be less tongue in cheek, be a little more descriptive. And, I got to really, on my end, I got to really approach that. And the band, we just went in with no expectation other than making a record together. That was it. We didn't know what was going to happen. We weren't even thinking like crowdfunding, because we funded the whole record ourselves before we did the Kickstarter. The record, we just did the Kickstarter at the amount we needed to recoup it. And made that smart. Like 9 days, which was amazing. It was,
but everybody that like put into it, like got like legitimately got something great in return. I mean, like skydiving with Cameron. Like, how many bands have a Kickstarter that's like, yeah, you're going to skydive with the guitar player? Like,
it's absolutely insane. And like, the girl who went in, our friend Nicole.
Yeah.
That was just the best, the fact.
Yeah, Nicole's I love that it was Nicole. I was like, that makes so much sense.
I know. I expected. So like, wow, people really do care about us. And it goes beyond just being fans. It's emotional. It's people we've spent time with. It's, there were a ton of people that we know that contributed. And I was just like, whoa, this is insane, and also made us realize we still have people who care. I mean, we predated social media. We don't know what we're doing, like I run, so I have a hand in helping the team, but like, it's just crazy because we probably should care more than we do. We don't care, that like, cool, be consistent, be around, but like, we're not trying to like do anything but be ourselves. And sometimes that's to our detriment, but like, it's just who we are. But lastly, before, to touch on the sleeping, I also wanted to say thanks for like complimenting the vinyl aspect of it. Cause, I've been collecting for quite some time now. It's changed my whole life. I never realized as a musician, like, why don't you collect physical, formats of music? I've never been like that, because I've never grown up saving anything or collecting. My mom wasn't like that, my family. So now I collect records, and I had a chance to really help with the curation of, alongside, Cameron's brother, who helped us with the design, and this wonderful artist, Kate, who did the cover. But I mean, and Brandon, who took our photo on the back of the cover, or on the insert. But I got to curate the colors and work with a pressing plant. And it was kind of like a dream for me, because, I've never blatantly honest, I never cared about it back in the day. Never thought about it like, oh my God, I should be really into something like this. And one day it just clicked for me. And I'm like, I get a record a day in the mail. Like I'm insane, like all day, every day.
Nice.
I'm looking.
Yeah.
Because it meant a lot to me to curate that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's great. And it's, it's just funny because also, just amazing moments for me because, then you guys played Amityville Music Hall when we, first like really like connected. I came around that corner, we saw each other, and it was just like this hug and embrace. And then the phenomenal part about it was like now my daughter Madison being 16, who's been listening to you guys because of me, and it's like you guys were the one band that out of all the stuff that she would steal or hear of mine that she stayed with.
That's
Like
awesome.
she always listened to those records. And now she was in the front of the crowd singing along while you guys were playing. And I'm jumping up on stage and jumping off people to sing with you. And my daughter's right there taking a picture of me doing the things that we were doing before she was even here.
Crazy, dude.
And then
awesome.
your record release show at Bowery Ballroom, I bring my son Elvis. He gets a copy of the vinyl and he's running around trying to get all you guys to sign it. And I'm just like smiling, like
Wow.
I'm like, this is like
Damn,
blowing my
that's awesome.
mind. Like
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
so cool.
what the hell?
Your kids were like such great human beings. Like seriously, like honestly, like talking to both of them, like when Elvis and I were talking at the merch table, that's just someone like I was like talking to. I was like, I just want to protect this dude at all costs. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Genuine soul, as well as Madison. But like, I talked with Elvis more. I just think, dude,
Yeah.
and being quieter down there, and it was down at the merch, but it was just really cool. It was really cool. And as an adult, it's so crazy to see people I love and care about like having kids that are older. It's
Yeah. Old enough to be like coming to the shows and like getting involved and loving the records. And like I said, Elvis is now collecting vinyl, and he's like so pumped on on stuff, and he's like, I only want first pressings or stuff that's signed or and I'm like, all right, slow down, dude. I'm like, I still don't have a first pressing of Wish because I won't spend that much money on it because it's impossible to get. But now I've got a picture disc, a replay. I've got like 3 newer ones. But
But yeah, it's great when they're like genuinely appreciating things, like for all the right reasons and stuff. And it's not just a pile of like, I found these rocks in the driveway. I love them,
Yeah.
which is cute in its own way. But like when it's like, I love this song. I want this on a tangible thing and have it just to hold in my room, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome, and it really is sweet.
I can't imagine what that's like to have a kid like, your kid love the things you love so much. Like Sal's son is an insane musician.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For his age, he's insane. Like I watched Sal react to how good his son is getting at the drums and like he's playing guitar. And like I don't, my wife and I, we don't want kids, and that's cool. But like it's like I look at these moments and I'm like, that must be like, I can't even describe it, but what I feel is so intense when I watch how like hyped I'll see Sal get on his kid loving or playing a beat, or I'm just like, man, that must be so incredible because you love your kid no matter what they get into, but I couldn't even begin to imagine what it would feel like if I had a kid and they're like, I love this song, or I love what is this? And all
like, Elvis is going to be 13 in 2 days, and I would say he's literally probably a month away from being a better guitar player than I ever was. and it's like, it's amazing, like I love it. He's just, he's in his room like ripping riffs and like, he's like learning Sabbath songs and Black Flag songs, and it's just like,
do they like the
what?
Yeah.
Yep. Both of them, like, I didn't force it on them. Obviously they would hear it in the car and they would hear it around the house. And it's the thing they gravitated to. But, it's funny because, and this is always my one like thing where I'm like, where I'm, proud dad moment is that when Elvis was like 3, he came down the stairs and is like, and his mother. I was at work, and my ex-wife, she was listening to the Smiths, and Elvis goes, "Mommy, what is this?" She goes, "It's the Smiths." He goes, "Turn it off." But like he gravitated so much to the Cure, and like still to this day is like, "Ugh, Morrissey, ugh, shut up," And so I was like, "Oh, you love what I love and you hate what I hate," and I'm like, "You really are my spawn." Yeah, so I feel like I'm becoming a ghost is the name of the record that is out now.
Cool ass name too. Is there a backstory to that?
There is. So, I've been dealing with, and it's hard for me to talk about this stuff because I hate that it feels performative when I feel like I'm trying to be honest, because we're all at the age where like this has become more normal to discuss. And I think I'm just getting used to discussing it. I feel like I'm becoming a ghost. It's definitely based off of a lot of mental health issues that I have. I have like very big mood swings, and I go through like pretty serious bouts of what I guess and what I feel like is depression, not getting out of bed for months at a time, which, happened recently, and kind of being forced, like our tour with Sunny Day Real Estate forced me out of my house, and I'm glad it did because I'm in a much better place. But I feel like I'm becoming a ghost. It's about all of these issues, my self-awareness of trying to face these issues, but also, how scary it was to be a band again in the sense of like, am I even relevant anymore? Is relevancy something I care about? And I feel like I'm becoming a ghost is basically like projection of, wanting to kind of feel the need to say, hey, I'm still here. Like, I'm not irrelevant by any means, but also dealing with the fact that like, I don't care at the same time, I don't care if I kind of disappear into the background. Like, I don't give a shit, but that it's a hard thing to deal with as a musician who's like, my whole life was touring. My whole life was like music or bust. That's it, and now I have this great life outside of it, but I have to sometimes cope with the fact that it's not the life I thought I would have all the time, that title is just kind of all encompassing of my feelings of being in my own skin and wanting to be something greater, but still feeling like I've accomplished so much and being happy in a home life setting and being more selective with touring. But, it's just kind of the quest to overcome these issues that I'm very self-aware of, but still have a problem dealing with. So that's kind of the title in a nutshell. So
awesome.
And like I was very peculiar about the lyrics being handwritten. That's my handwriting on the sweatshirt Antonio's wearing. Sorry, that's my sweatshirt handwriting on the sweatshirt Antonio's wearing. Nice. So I really this lyrically to like completely, encompass what I was feeling, and every inch of it that I could give needed to be like fully me. Hence the lyrics and the title. And
yeah, I really dig it. It's got a cool like kind of that perfect kind of Cure where you can read into it different meanings and such too. Like I love the idea that it's like I was taking it as like you're getting older, that kind of thing, and the idea of dying. But then at the same time, everyone always thinks is like ghost is death, but really eternal. Like a ghost is still hanging out. Like especially artistically or something. So in a sense, it's like ultimate achievement to be a ghost in a sense. Or it's like I'm still here, I'm lingering. So that's kind of cool.
It's a great way to interpret it because that is a lot of how it felt with that.
Yeah.
Like. But for me, not in the positive way, like more I'm in the shadows.
Yeah.
Am I just fading away? And I don't even just mean existentially, just like, my vibration, like I'm just kind of empty, so it's cool that you're hearing it like, hey, I'm still here. Cause I feel that thing, but just for me, it's like, am I still here in a way that like feels good to me,
Yeah. That too.
And I like the way you said you can interpret it in different ways, because that was a goal on this whole record, lyrics and everything. I've never really been like that. A lot of my lyrics, you can tell what I'm writing about, even if it's like, oh, it's 7 o'clock, I went here kind of thing. It's still like you get what I'm saying where
like broken down somewhere in Georgia. You're
exactly,
like literally, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it's true. And to circle back to what you said, like, you know, being, such a huge fan of your first two full lengths were like beyond him, like impressive. And at the time, you guys were genre bending, where you weren't in one thing, you weren't, and you got to, which helps because you got to tour with different types of bands, whether it was hardcore bands, emo bands, punk bands, it didn't matter. There was something in there for everyone to pull from. But I gotta agree with you, man. I think this is your best record. I mean, not just sonically, but you're right. Like the lyrics on it, the flow, it still has the catchiness, but you're right. It has the more like deeper like dig to it, which is what I love about music. Sometimes if things are too obvious and too on the chin, people can't interpret it their way, or they can't put themselves into that feeling and that emotion. And that's what we do as musicians. That's why certain songs hit us. Like today, my wife and I were driving. El Dorado by Sam I Am came on my phone, and I said I looked at my wife, I'm like, what's funny? I'm like, when I'm getting like a bout of anxiety, this is one of the songs for some reason I hum or I sing. And I don't know why. Whether it's a calming song to me, it's a catchy thing to me. Maybe it helps ground me and pull me down from wherever my thoughts are going. So instead I'm like, let me just get caught in this song instead of that. And then I started to like listen to the lyrics of it, and I was like, oh wow, I'm like, I guess I really was pulling from like what it was, and it, like subconsciously, like, so there's a nice deep pull, and that's one of the things that gets me about The Cure, that it's not these obvious, like Love Cats. He's not really talking about cats, guys, like, so, like it's one of those things that I love can be interpreted so many ways. And you take what you need out of that song, because we write songs as musicians for us. And I write, my music now is therapy, but my hope is that it hits somebody else in a therapeutic way. And I'm sure that person's not going through the same exact thing that I was, but I want them to take that with them and hope that it gets them through whatever it is they're going through.
Totally. And going back to The Cure, bands like The Cure, Deftones, At the Drive-In, I mean, I can go on forever. Like, even Knapsack. Like, I love that, like, it's not so tongue in cheek. And I don't know why, because I love so many bands that are tongue in cheek as well. It's all good.
Yeah.
Something that I feel like brings out more of the passion when someone's kind of giving you like, not a puzzle, but like, take this and interpret it the way you want. And, I think I've always only wanted to be that, you know what I mean? Like, and my lyrics from our past records, they definitely have a mix of that, because at those times, that's just what came out. I don't have an explanation for it or whatever, but I've always listened to music primarily that has had like a deeper meaning to me that I have to kind of fish for or whatever. And like, also I'm not necessarily a lyrics first guy when I listen to music either. Like, like a whole song or like the music. Cause I play every instrument. So like, I really love to hear the band, and sometimes I don't even like, I'll listen to records all the way through multiple times and not even read the lyrics yet. But bands like
same.
Bands like Deftones, At the Drive-In, like there are certain bands that would like reel me in to want to know what they're talking about. And, I just think that is like a whole other level. And I'm not saying it makes anyone less passionate with doing the tongue in cheek. I just feel like there's like a whole other like textural level to those things that I really connect with as an artist and as a musician, like, as a lover of music. Like, I don't know. I feel like I like that you have to unlock someone's feelings rather than like know exactly
Yes.
what it is, you
And
know?
that's a great point because I try to have these conversations and people get very defensive about music as we do
Yeah.
as as musicians and fans of bands. But I try to have this conversation with people in regards to the Beatles. And I think it's a good way for me to explain kind of like I don't dislike the Beatles, but the
Yeah.
reason why my connection isn't there, I feel like a lot with that stuff is the I don't really feel like I was getting much of the like nothing on the from a lyrical standpoint I felt was challenging or letting me pull it from me. I felt like it was always I'm just listening to you tell that story.
Right.
And I find them not as relatable for me to hit that standpoint in me. Amazing songwriters. I mean, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. I mean, they groundbreaking in so many ways. Recording, layering. I mean, I give them all the kudos in the world, but that's why I'm drawn to George Harrison's solo stuff. Is my favorite thing any of them ever did because like what he's saying, I can take pieces from. I get to interpret. It hits me emotionally in a different way and it's like I've never been able to like explain it as well, but I think that's one of those things that makes it like for me. I'm like can't
Yeah.
find
Yeah,
any
it's
love,
tough.
and I'm
I
like
mean, they
it
definitely
doesn't
got
hit.
artsier as it went, but I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Like, I want to hold your
but
hand and shit.
yeah,
You're just kind of like, but for you kind of wrote them in the studio then for the new album. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We wrote it in the studio, which I was saying before, like it's kind of the same thing we've always done. But when we would just write out of thin air like all the time. Like no one ever really came with like a riff. It was just like, all right, we're in the room. What are we gonna
Right.
do? It was kind of the same thing in the studio, but we've never done it in the studio. We'd always come with all the
Yeah.
songs.
yeah,
Just really cool to go and write them there, minus the first song on the record, which is the one we made when we first got
Yeah.
together. Um, and it was really cool to do it that way, just because, I don't know, like I had mentioned before, like we just went into this record with no expectation other than being a band again
Yeah.
together and writing together. So to come out with a record plus a song we didn't put on the record when normally we would just go to the room, go to the studio with exactly how many songs we had for the
Right.
record, time constraints from label or whatever, but we always went with just enough tracks. And this time around, we actually we were selective and actually had an extra song. It was cool. It was just a really cool process. And it was cool because everyone's so different now. And I think people are more patient. And it was just a really cool way to write together as adults too, because
yeah,
back in the day, it was just jam, make the songs cool. This time we're like, oh, this is really cool. What if you did this? Like this was rad.
Yeah.
And, I think also, I'm the youngest in the band. I'm 40, but when we started, I wasn't even
yeah,
21. I wasn't even 20. I was like, I think I was like 19. No, I was 18.
Wow.
18, yeah,
Yeah, I was 18 when the band started. So like, and those dudes were much older than me, but a few years or
Yeah.
whatever. But, I never felt a lot of times in the band back in the day, I never felt my place as like a band member. I did, but also I was always the young
Right.
one. And I think now we're all adults and, actually making a record as someone of sound mind. And, I've become somewhat of a producer. I really love to work on, like, recording is my favorite part of being in a band. I love making songs. I love making records. I was able to really have my input this time around where I used to never be like that. It was just the band does their thing. Okay, guys, leave me in the room alone, like with Chris or Mike, and let me,
Cut
do my
this.
thing. Where now it was much more, like symbiotic, I guess you can
Yeah.
say.
yeah.
And,
And you
I
say and
thought,
you said this is the fourth record that you've done with them.
so this is the fourth record with them now.
That's
Yeah. So
awesome.
they did
Yeah,
questions and answers. They did Believe We Tell You questions and answers. They did the Big Deep, and then they did this new record. And between those four, we had another record that we did in Maryland. But yeah, this is our fourth record with them. They're our family and they always will be our family. And I think it just made sense to go back to them for this record.
With them being the producers, who was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You can edit this in, but yeah, we made the record. We made the new record with Mike Birnbaum and Chris Bittner, who are producers of.
They've done some amazing records.
Yeah.
Those guys, they churn out some crazy shit.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it was cool. It was like a big family thing, and it was. I brought my dog. I have a dog. We just adopted a dog like almost a year ago now at this point, and it's really cool because I was very homesick, even just being in Woodstock for the time we made a record. I mean, it's like I said, we're all in different places now, where being in a band is amazing, but it's still different than having nothing to lose. Now it's like, family and of course I have a dog, others have kids, so I'm not saying I'm the only guy, but it was cool bringing my dog. And my dog is he has like separation anxiety, but not in a way where it's like he can't be left, but he's always at my side when I'm around.
Right.
And on the record, he's in the booth for every song.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Literally sat in the booth for every song.
That's so rad.
So like and he was in the control room with all of us, like, laying with Cameron or Joe. He got really close with them. Sal being like, look at this dog. Like he became, it was really cool. It was a very cool, like, family environment making this record, which I've heard a lot of before from bands that have gotten older and made records, but be that person living it now. I was like, oh, this is a very rad way to make it. I mean, it was the pressure wasn't on us. Like, I think it was more on ourselves, but like still at the end of every night, we're like having fun. We'd go out to eat together. When we used to make records before, we were just in the studio. We didn't go anywhere. We'd go out like one night up, like for like the month we were there or whatever, where this time around we made sure we like, went out in the town together, and, really cool. It was cool. And I think that has a big part.
Where did you record it?
We did it at Applehead Studios in Woodstock.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Woodstock, New York, which is also really cool to, consider that like a second home. Every time I go back there, I'm like, holy shit. Like, it's crazy that Woodstock, New York is like a place I'm extremely familiar with because of making records there.
Yeah.
I feel very cool. Like, and I don't mean that in like a pretentious way. Like, it feels great to me, like, to be in this belly of the beast of music. And obviously Woodstock, of course, the actual Woodstock was, further away, but still, so close to downtown Woodstock that it's just really cool. Like, the music scene there is incredible. It's all like older, like hip cats, and like, it's just beautiful to be surrounded by that. And, we've made a record there in every element of nature, in winter, summer, spring, and this time around was like October. So it just really felt right, and I'm grateful for what came out of it. You know what I mean? I really am. And I owe, our band owes a lot to them, to really make it full circle was like such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, it's probably one of my favorite records that came out this year. It's for sure in my top 3 without question. And you were able to do some other stuff musically as well, like after the sleeping, you did Night Verses, and as we kind of talked, and Night Verses has a little bit of a connection to The Cure, right?
Yeah. So, when I was singing for Night Verses, we had done a record with Chris Crummett. We had done an EP and a record with Chris Crummett, amazing producer. He's done so many good records. He's out of Portland. I got to really, we got to experience Portland together. It was amazing. We started building momentum and building traction, and somehow I believe it was through Will Putney, who did Graphic Nature, does Graphic Nature, which is like a subsidiary of Equation, we had signed with. And, by the second record, I think we had gotten Ross's attention, or maybe some people spoke with him prior to us. And, we got to meet Ross in Venice, and we wound up making our second record with Ross. And, Ross produced the self-titled Cure record, which, I think it's kind of, it's like a choice nug for some people, if you will.
Yeah.
But I really love a bunch of tracks off that record. And the stories I got to hear about the making of that record were so rad. And when we made our record with Ross, which is called Into the Vanishing Light, he listened to nothing but The Cure. I mean, there are people that will say, like, I've seen YouTube comments or whatever, like, oh, this is like a ripoff of The Cure. And it's so funny because, like, we weren't at all trying to rip them off. It's just all we were listening to. It was like every second of the day, we'd play it before we started. We'd play it at night. Like, I'd sit up on the roof of his house, because it was like right on the Venice boardwalk. And I would just literally sit there and overlook the beach and like just listen to The Cure. And we never left that place except to kind of like, I would go mountain biking with Ross in the morning, or we'd go to get some food, or go watch go to the skate park for a little bit. But really, we just stayed in that bubble. And like Ross's house, it's all music. His studio, his house, like it's like very minimally decorated, at least at that point. Very minimal. It's just music. That's it.
Yeah.
So the walls were just pulsing with music we were playing, creating, listening to, and we were only listening like 98% of the time. We were only
just
listening
like
to
every genre Cure, or what was his go-to?
We were big on pornography, and we were big on Disintegration. But I think those two, pornography and Disintegration, were like the big ones. And Ross, obviously listen, him showing us, the self-titled and telling stories about it, which was incredible. I kind of went even further down a Cure rabbit hole because of that session. So I've always loved The Cure.
Yeah.
I think, my first time getting into The Cure, I think, was Beavis and Butthead, when they had like, I think it was like Friday I'm in Love. I think that was on Beavis and Butthead. I think that's where it was from. It was from some MTV show. I'm pretty sure it was Beavis and Butthead. And I remember being a kid like, whoa, this is dope. Like, what is it? But I'd listen here and there, and I'd listen to their record, and like I'd get a CD. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. But I think as I got older and started to really appreciate music, and then when you're like sitting there with one of your favorite producers ever in the entire world, and he's telling you these amazing stories about bands you love, it changes your whole perspective.
Yeah.
And, to hear his stories kind of humanizing The Cure was incredible. You know what I mean? Because they're like larger than life to everybody.
Yeah.
But to hear these kind of humanistic moments of what Ross would get out of them, and particularly like Robert, what he would get out of the band.
So it seemed like he kind of felt good about the whole experience still? Like he was like...
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because it is, like you said, it's very divided with a lot of people.
Yeah.
You just hear the random stories.
That's a Ross record.
Yeah.
It is. And that I think that's where a lot of the problem is with it. It's not a Cure record. It's a Rossified Cure record. And that's the thing. I love so much stuff that Ross Robinson does.
Yeah.
But then when it's like it's like he changed up the recipe to someone's favorite food. So it's not every, you know what I mean? So it's like,
it's always going to be.
I get that. I love that record because I think I just have this attachment to it.
Yeah. I was going to say, if there's
like it,
right.
Like The End of the World is like such a good song.
That's
oh yeah. That's one of the cuts through there. But it was like, I was like, yo, he got Robert Smith to like be angry and yell almost.
Well, that's what's really interesting about Ross is he'll make anybody get down to the levels of like breaking that person down. And Ross admits it right when we recorded with him. One of the first things he said, he's like, people do one of two things after my records. Well, one of three, but it was one of two that happened. He said they either only do one with they only either do one with me and move on, or they do one with me and break up. That's basically what he said. And there's something kind of awesome about that. Like I think he's so polarizing that like you have to make a record with someone like that. I mean, the dude is just music in its like purest concentrated form. And I wanted to make a record. We wanted to make a record with someone like that so bad. And, at the drive-in relationship of command changed my life.
Oh my God.
So like,
yeah.
be able to make a record and use the same microphone as both of those dudes, Robert and Cedric, used in sessions.
Yeah.
There's something that does to a fan of music and a fan of these artists.
I mean, and especially for us localized, I mean, Glassjaw. I mean, that
totally.
Glassjaw record was like, was like the background soundtrack to most of our lives, like,
of course. Yeah. No, it's really cool.
I have to ask, did he how hard did he push your buttons? Did he throw candles at you and shit? Or?
Oh, dude. Yes.
Yeah, he got there.
Replace candles with orders.
Okay.
But I loved it. Yeah. I mean, I remember talking about going with Ross to like very few people before we had announced it. And I remember people who know Ross were like, you're going to get along with him so well. You guys are going to be like this. And we did. We wound up being like this. I wound up staying even later. The rest of the band had left. And, I wound up staying with him. Like we were finishing things, but we were also just chilling, like I would like go mountain biking with him every morning. And, my wife and I had visited him when we'd come to California. Like, I love that dude. We don't talk as much anymore just because the hustle and bustle of life, but like, it will always be like one of my favorite people because he pushed people, but it's all for music. I mean, he would be in the live room with us making this record. And like he would be pushing Riley playing bass, like pushing Riley. And Riley's like, and Nick, and they're mellow dudes and they're not like with that, but you can see them getting angry or whatever. And that's what he would want in these parts. But the minute Eric would break a stick on his drums just from like smashing, Ross would like look around and grab a drumstick and give it to Eric. And once Eric would grab it, Ross would be like this, you know what I mean? Like, like he was like in the band.
Yeah.
And, there's something really, really cool about that style of making a record for people like us who are passionate. Like I'm always passionate before logistics to me or before, I don't want to and maybe that's to my detriment. I don't really want to study my craft. I want me to just take care of my voice and my body and be who I am, and especially now. And that's the way I feel like I get better at my craft. But, to have someone like Ross, who's very like guttural and feelings first, and why the fuck you singing about this? Or, do you really want to sing about this? Or are you just lying to yourself? Like it was a very cool thing. And a lot of that he did with The Cure too, Again, going back to The Cure, like, it was really cool to hear him humanize them, or hear these situations where they would humanize with Ross, because Ross doesn't do it for any other reason other than the music. He's not trying to be like, I'm going to break this dude down. Like, he's trying to test you for the music to see you get like your purest form of it out. Sometimes people love that. Sometimes people don't. Right. But I love that he goes for it because he doesn't care. Like he doesn't care what other people think. He wants to make art. And, I had never in my life thought I would make a record while only listening to like The Cure. I just never thought that would happen. And to have made, for people listening to this podcast, like, please go listen to that record, Night Verses, Into the Vanishing Light. I mean, 90% of it sounds like a dark, heavy Cure, And it's literally because we were just surrounded by it. And
it's funny because I did semi feel that, but I didn't even realize he did the record.
Yeah.
At the time, because again, you were doing those records and I was still following what you were doing, like I said, we hadn't, talked, but, I was like, oh, this is sick. This is great. And, but it was also the time period where it's like, I hadn't gotten to see you guys live. I didn't own a CD to like look at the liner notes. And that's where that disconnection is with streaming. Like, do I use streaming? Absolutely. But there's just nothing better, to me than being able to get a vinyl and open it up and like go through the liner notes while you're listening to it and hold it and feel it and connect to it. I mean, it's awesome because like I said, I can just, if I'm thinking about a song, whip out my phone and put it on wherever I am at any moment. But you know, it's like it's so different, you know. So I didn't realize he did that album, but so
Yeah.
rad.
It's even cool to me as like a fan of music. Like, whoa, shit. Like I recorded with some great people in my life, and I'm very fortunate. And, you know, to sit there and listen to a band that is world renowned times 1,000, 1,000,000, infinity, you know, with a guy who produced one of those, you know, that band's records, and hear these great stories. I mean, so much of us hanging with Ross was like asking him to tell us stories at night, you know, because Night versus all of us were like extremely intrigued by people's methods, and, you know, and we're all fans of At the Drive-In, and we're all fans of, you know, The Cure. And but just to be able to like sit and hang together and like listen to Ross like passionately talk about, you know, these Deftones and these Korn stories, and like, you know, it's just really, really cool. It was something I'm very proud of to this day, even though that record did kind of disintegrate our time together, as you know, my time with Night Versus. We're still boys, we talk all the time, but you know, I think we kind of got the other side of what could happen to a Ross band, but it doesn't change the fact that like we made a record that I'm like extremely proud of. I mean, I listen to that thing and it's so weird. That record's so weird, but like in such a cool way that I'm like, well, no one sounds like this. You know what I mean? Yeah, it sounds like a fucked up Cure, but like it's still very fucked up. You know what I mean? And there's something really cool about that I'm like extremely proud of it. It felt like it was a very non-traditional way to make a record out of like the 10-ish more records that I've made. So, you know, I think that's something I'm very, very proud of. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool to have that connection too, and here too, because we don't have too many Russ Robinson crossovers here on the show. So
it's always just always so many like rumors and speculation.
Yeah,
you know, like
so what the fuck happened? It's like
that's why like I don't like to tell too much either, because I love the lore of Ross.
Yeah,
because when you meet him, everything you hear is true, but like he's the best dude on the planet. He's one of the best dudes.
It's good to hear.
You know, like the dude will have a conversation with you and his eyes are so intense that you just know everything he says he means, and he believes and he acts. And like when it comes to music, like you want someone like that on your side. I mean, I remember meeting him. We met him outside of the Starbucks on Venice Beach, which I think was that Washington or whatever, the one that goes the street that goes right to the beach. I think it's Washington. I could be wrong, but it's right there. And I remember there was, you know, we were outside and there was this dude who was like shirtless, you know, he was without home, you know, and he was kind of like in his own world. And there was music playing on the outside speakers, and we're like talking to Ross about making records, and we're like, oh, you know, like, you know, what do you think about this and whatever? So we're like talking. He's like, I just want to fucking make magic. I want to make fire or whatever. And he's like, music is fucking everywhere. And he's like getting so deep. And all of a sudden, I think like Jimi Hendrix came on like all along the Watchtower, and the dude was like on a bench, and he just got up and was like, and just started air guitaring, and Ross goes, fuck I'm talking about. And I was just like, oh shit, okay, like we should probably make a record with this dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just so cool. And, you know, I think one thing I love taking away from Ross, I learned so much from Ross. Like he helped me have the confidence to like really sing whole takes and play to my strengths, rather than try to get good performances and then not be able to pull these things off. And I've taken that ever since. But I think one of the things I will always take away with Ross is that, like, you know, everything was for the music, and everything was like, it felt like there was a purpose of making a record that was more than just like putting out a record. It was like, let's be in this room. And, you know, I remember being very emotional leaving his place, because it was the only thing we were doing was just like pulsating in this room together, like all of us, you know, the walls were just boom, boom. You know, he'd wake us up at like 4 a.m. for like an idea or whatever, you know, or sorry, later at night if one of us was sleeping. And like, we'd like go downstairs and like he would get down to he would get on his knees. The chair's like right there. And he would just get on his knees and like he was like a mad scientist. And I was just like, fuck, man, this is insane. This is so cool. And I'm very grateful, and
awesome.
and his stories were just like incredible. And I like, again, circling back to like, I like leaving the lore of Ross for people to wonder and imagine, because
it's cool.
Like that.
It is cool.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do for sure. And I mean, cool. and I think that's the reason why I feel like that the self-titled Cure record is like disconnected a little from, because it's for them to relinquish like control and sound to someone. I think is a different thing for them, and different isn't always great for everybody.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think different sometimes, but A+ for doing it, know. And
well, there's not too many people that can have the balls to like challenge the Cure. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so exactly. I'm at least like, wow, and be like a big enough of a personality where like they didn't storm out of there. You know what I mean? Like, so there's got to be something
more.
To it.
Yeah, even to kiss the Cure's ass on that side of like to do that on your 12th album after you've that far into your career, call it your self-titled album, even. I mean, the whole thing was just like, all right, so like we're reinventing ourselves. It's like what is going on? But I love it. It's what Robert loves to do, is just turn everything upside down, and that was kind of the ultimate way to do it at that point, I think. So
for sure,
mission accomplished to a certain degree.
I think that's why. Like, to me, it kind of worked, because I think, like you said, it takes serious bravery to be a band at that level and go, you know what? We're known for this for eons. Yeah. Fuck it, and for someone like Ross, he's so easy to connect with when you love music. So I think it worked in what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
I can understand why people might feel certain ways, but that's the beauty of music, right? Everybody can feel a certain way.
Yeah.
There's in a Ross record, you will always feel a certain way. That's what's really great too. Like, a lot of records we listen to in life, they're fucking rad, or we don't like them, right? But you never feel this like, or this, with Ross records, I always feel something.
Yeah.
And like, more than just feeling like, oh, I love this record, or, oh, this isn't my thing. Like, I feel why I love it or hate something.
Yeah.
And with Ross records, I love them because I've experienced what it's like. Even if that record isn't everyone's favorite or whatever, I'm like, fun. And like, props to this band for going through a Ross record. It is a wild journey in the best way, but also it's very different,
And I could see Robert hearing those stories and being in the same line of thought, especially at that point in his career, and like wanting that rush of doing something different, being passionate, and almost going down another avenue of what we wanted to talk about with his something that gives, as fans of The Cure, we kind of just see this epic historical 80s into 90s Robert of like, they're The Cure, but you kind of forget that he's a huge music fan too. And he's checking out all these younger bands and getting into shit. And he's passionate about this stuff, wanting to do different stuff. And you could see how something like that and Ross would appeal to him. The idea of like, let's fucking kick the fucking table over and do something different at this point. And, like you were saying before we started, he does have a great passion for finding younger bands and bringing them on tours, or just, promoting them and championing them in a sense. And like you're saying with 65 Days of Static, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Because they opened in 2008, or like a opening act. He brought him on, and after that meltdown thing, where he curated it and pulled all these bands
that
into
best.
it.
Yeah.
And basically stemmed this whole new album that we're still waiting on. But that like inspired the whole thing, like he was happy probably not to ever do anything maybe at this point. And it's kind of cool to acknowledge that he is just a cool music fan too, so.
Totally, dude. I think that's probably one of my favorite things about Robert Smith is like he has this thirst for music that I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like he's just like looking for things and like, I'm like, I don't really like whatever. This isn't my thing. Like every band he's ever like done a guest vocal for or taken out on tour. I love every band. Churches, 65 Days of Static, Twilight Sad, Crystal Castles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these are all fucking dope acts. And
not super
really
predictable either. You would think he would,
exactly.
You're like, oh, what? He's like doing a Gorillaz song? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Totally. And dude, that 65 Days of Static song he's on, that song is so fucking good. Like I listened to that song. I listened to that record. I think it's an EP or it's a record. We Were Exploding Anyway, it's called. But that song, dude, like I'm like, dude, this is so sick. Like, think about the fact that he's like immortalizing himself and he's not young and he's doing these things that he sound like, he's on the New Crosses record.
Yeah, that song is so good. I was just about to say that.
Song rips, dude.
Yeah,
like,
so good.
So good. And him remixing a Deftones record for Record Store Day, I think last year. Like it's just fucking awesome that like he wants to be a part of these cool bands that he likes. And he doesn't have to impress anyone. I mean, one of my favorite things, and we've all seen it, I'm sure, but one of my favorite things is that thing where he's like, they're being inducted into the Hall of Fame or whatever. And the interviewee's like, or the interviewer's like, oh my God, this is your night. The Cure being inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Are you as excited as I am? And he's like, oh, the sound of it.
No, really.
And it's like, dude, like, who says that? Someone who does not give a fuck at all about any accolades other than just the music. And like, I get that feeling from him listening to bands, that he like guests on or brings out. Like, I'm like, dude, this guy is just like a kid at heart, like being super down with dope music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I was at St. Vitus and I was talking to Jeff from Thursday. And this was before Riot Fest. And he was like, I'm so pumped for it. He's like, get to see the Cure again. And then he was telling me how like Robert Smith like mentioned that he thought it was like great that Thursday was on it again and that he had seen them play and they have such a thing and a passion. And Jeff was like, to hear Robert Smith say that about your like what you still feel is like little hardcore band from Jersey. He was like that was like one of the biggest things that has ever happened to me as a musician, and one of the greatest things that's ever happened at Thursday is just Robert Smith being like, yeah, these guys have something, like like
so
and I was like
that's like a compliment of compliments.
Yeah, does it get any better than that?
Yeah, no, that's incredible, man. And props to anyone that gets that attention from someone like that, because clearly the guy likes good music.
Yeah.
And his track record's pretty undeniable and undefeatable right now. Like I had never heard Twilight Sad before I found them through Robert Smith. And like, I love that band. And I'm like, fuck, man, this shit is sick.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't know that Churches song until Sal was like, yo, did you hear that Churches song with Robert Smith? I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that.
God, it's so good.
And I was like, fuck, man, this song is so good. Like, and obviously the 65 Days of Static I've been listening to for a long time, that Crystal Castles song. My wife loves that track. Like, it's just sick because, my wife and I have like different tastes in music. And it's like, I love when you reach similarities because like there are just undeniable things. And like the Cure and Robert Smith, they're kind of like an undeniable entity where like anybody who likes good music likes the Cure, likes Robert Smith, respects
like nobody could sit there and tell you they haven't heard a Cure song.
Totally, 100%.
Even when they say it and then you tell them, and they're like, oh yeah, that song.
It's like Green Day's American Idiot. Like I grew up on Green Day. I love every Green Day record. It kind of ended for me, like I think American Idiot had come out and I was just kind of like, not over it because I go down Green Day rabbit holes all the time, but the sound that I love from them prior is like what I really connected with. But I know every American Idiot song. I've never once owned an American Idiot record in my life.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like never once owned a record. And if you play that record front to back, I know the lyrics to like 98% of it.
Right.
So it's like, that's like the Cure. Like you can love them or hate them, but you're going to know like 15 at least tracks. You know what I mean?
So what Cure falls, like what records are what's your favorite? Do you have?
So I know Robert Smith, in a lot of his like earlier interviews, he's like, I don't always want to be dark. Like, I don't want to be this like dark thing. Like I want to write like happy music and whatever, but like Pornography and Disintegration are like my favorite. I love Burn off the Cure off the Crow soundtrack.
Oh my God.
I'm just very into that kind of, you can't even really describe that. It's not 80s. It's not goth. It's not, it's weird. It's just it's like almost tribal, I love that like more tribal sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, the Sleeping, I definitely think it made its way on, I think Cure influence definitely made its way onto that record. Cause I was saying, I listen to them now in regular rotation. But what's cool about the Sleeping is the difference between making a record with Ross and just listening only to the Cure and like tripping out on it, and Hum. We listen to a lot of Hum as well, but listening to the Cure, when we make a record with the Sleeping, I don't listen to anything. Yeah. I want my influences, whatever happens, to just be there. So like even before I go into a record, I'm not listening to anything. Maybe like a couple months before I'll like still be blasting through music. But once we get in our own process, I don't want to hear anything else because I want me to come out and whatever's there is there. But I would not be surprised if there's Cure influence on it because, that band is over the years has shaped me way more. I've always been a fan, but after that Ross experience and all that, like it's kind of changed the game for me where I have joined the cult. Nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if you hear Cure influence on it because I'm sure it's all over. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like one of the greatest voices ever. Yeah. So like I'm sure at times my voice is
I get it.
Consciously kind of like emulate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been digging into that record a lot just in the few days leading up, and it's
sick.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing it and just enjoying it all the way around. Halcyon is my jam. It's definitely making my end of the year playlist greatest for sure. That's funny you said that was the one people were gravitating towards, but well, it's gotta feel good to be back and making great records.
There's a lot of things happening which I'm really excited about, but first and foremost, I mean, like this is like where I love to spend most of my days, in this room, all these great records, including The Cure, including Mars Volta, So it's like, I'm in no rush to go anywhere. Even though I'm excited to go all the time.
I guess as a record collector question, do you have a holy grail of albums that you want but you don't quite have yet?
I do. Yeah. I have one holy grail record that I want and don't have yet, and that's Tool's Anima.
Okay.
That's the one once I have that, I'm pretty good because I have pretty much every other grail.
Yeah.
And of course when we're talking about grail, obviously like expensive, rare,
just that weird time frame of vinyl.
Exactly. White whale type stuff that feels like unattainable. And I have pretty much every major grail I want besides that record. That record's like $2,000 mint.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
Working my way towards like buying it. It's not like I don't have money saved, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying by any means, but like I have money to do it. but like that's a hard sell for me.
Yeah.
How much I love a band, but I think probably next year early, I'm probably just going to pull the trigger because like then I don't care what I get every day. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I have all like my Grail Deftones records. I have the Failure box set, which is like, a huge record, a collector's item for me to own that I love. I have like a Mars Volta promo of Francis the Mute that's like super rare. And,
God, their
I have,
records are so expensive. Mars
oh, dude,
vinyl.
that one was insane. But so is the Deftones White Pony promo
Oh
I
yeah,
have.
yeah. That's
That thing's insane. But, like, I have like the Strider Masquerade in the Key of Crime record, not an expensive record, but a grail for me because I love that record.
yeah.
It's
I have all the
rare.
7 inches.
Dude, I wish Jungle City Twitch was on vinyl. I don't think it is.
I know.
That record is so good.
Yeah.
I think my one grail of records that has not come out on vinyl is The Exits Home for an Island. I would love if that record came out on vinyl. I would like die. And I keep trying to speak it into existence because, even talking with Chris from On the Might of Princes recently, they just released their vinyl the vinyl for Sirens for the first time. And there is, I think, until those records came out on vinyl recently, there was like a once a week period where I was like, man, I hope this record comes out on vinyl one day. It's like one of my favorite records ever. And like a year after repeatedly saying it, maybe more than a year, boom, it happened. So I'm just going to keep saying
it. Just keep saying it. Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, sounds good, man. Maybe we should start winding down. I don't want to keep up too much of your time there, and before my internet crashes some more. But yeah, do you have a preferred spot people track you down? Just all the streaming sites and such, or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm Becoming a Ghost is the Sleeping's new record, our band's new record. And, I'm really proud of that. You can find it on all streaming services. We have videos for our singles, our newest single, Halcyon, you can check out on YouTube.
And some tour dates, right?
Yeah, we got a Northeast run with our friends in the Fall of Troy and our friends in Thought Crimes. And, we have some dates. So check it out.
Got you on December 7th in Philly at the Theater of Living Arts. And then you keep them all rolling back to back here. December 8th at the Auto Bar in Baltimore.
Yep.
And December 9th at Warsaw, Brooklyn, New York. And December 10th, Brighton Music Hall in Massachusetts.
You can follow me at Douglas Robinson _. You can follow the band at The Sleeping Official on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But yeah, I mean, thank you for listening to me talk about music with you guys. Thank you guys for talking to me about music. Thank the listeners for listening. And, check out Vinyl Addiction Records in North Arlington, New Jersey. If you guys are ever in the area, that's a shop I work at. And it's just myself and the owner. And the owner is like a lover of music like us and likes really dope shit. And, it's a really great place to be, especially if you love music. So check that out as well. Follow me on Instagram or whatever the hell you want to do.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. It's great to meet you and to hear all this story.
Thanks for having me.
Again, we do this to talk about music. Like obviously the Cure is the center of it, but we take our turns and talk about other stuff. So we appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. And then and we like to also just show our listeners like some new and other music and bands and stuff, so help you promote what you guys have going on, which is massively appreciated. And hopefully we'll continue to to work together. I'm working on having Doug on a Cult Leader track so we can collab on that, which will be fun.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
But yes, thanks, brother. It's so good to see you doing what you're doing, to have you back in my life, and to have you on the podcast is just like just, I mean, that's why we do podcast. This podcast is hanging out with friends talking about music, so
Hell yeah, dude.
to have you in
love
that,
you,
it's the best.
seriously.
I love you too, buddy.
Seriously, thanks for having me. I love you, man. Genuinely.
Cool deal. Well, you guys keep in touch, go hang out, and hopefully we'll all cross paths soon. Really appreciate it. And for the podcast here, we'll just give a big old ode to pump up the volume and say, talk hard. Catch you next time.
Oh, yeah. Thank you both. Gavin, thank you as well, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, man. Again, a very special thank you to Doug Robinson from The Sleeping. Go check out their new album, I Feel Like I'm Becoming a Ghost, everywhere that you stream music. Thanks, Antonio. Thank you guys for listening. And we'll keep this one short and sweet with just a big old hug and kiss to our Patreon crew. We'll catch you next time with a review of The Cure in Mexico City.